The Philippine Constitution, Taxation, and Agranian policies. Lesson 1 is History Evolution of the Philippine Constitution. So, Constitution is a set of fundamental principles or established precedents according to which a state or other organization is governed. It symbolizes the country's freedom and independence. The Philippine Constitution has evolved since 1887 to the 1987 Constitution. The next one is the 1897 Constitution of Napoles. The Heroes Convention held at the San Francisco de Malabon in Cavite on March 22, 1897 was the result of the Katipunan Revolution. Emilio Aguinaldo, the first president, and the vice president was Mariano Trias were elected by the members of the Katipunan. November 1, 1897 was the Republic of Biak-na-Bato or Republica de Biak-na-Bato was established during a meeting held at Biak-na-Bato in town of San Miguel de Mayomo in Bulacan. This was a de facto constitutional republic. In this meeting, the constitution written by Isabelo Artacho and Felix Ferrer was promulgated by the Katipunan, which acted as Constitutional Assembly. The Constitution of Biak-na-Bato, known as the Constitution Provisional de la República de Filipinas, was short-lived as it operated only from November 1, 1897 to December 14, 1897. The preamble of 1897 Constitution of Biak-na-Bato reads, "The separation of the Philippines from the Spanish monarchy and their formation into an independent state with its own government called the Philippines Republic has been the end sought by the revolution in the existing war began on 24th of August 1896. Therefore, in its name and by the power delegated by the Filipino people, interpreting faithfully their desires and ambitions, we, the representative of the revolution in a meeting at the Biak-na-Bato, November 1st, 1897, unanimously adopt the following articles for the Constitution of the state. The next one is the 1899 Malolos Constitution or the Political Constitution of 1899. Constitution Politica de 1899, the basic law of the First Philippine Republic, unitary semi-presidential constitutional, the first Republican Constitution in Asia by Felipe Calderon y Roca and Felipe Buencamino after the declaration of the Philippine independence from Spain on 12 June 1898. It was signed into law by the Malolos Congress and promulgated on January 21, 1899. So the Malolos Constitution was in operation from January 23, 1899 to March 23, 1801. And it includes the Declaration of Sovereignty of the People, the enumeration of the basic civil rights, the separation of the church and state. It provided for the creation of an assembly of representatives to act as the legislative body and a parliamentary republic as the form of the government. The next one is the Acts of the United States Congress was in operation from December 10, 1898 to March 24, 1834. Since the Philippines was a territory of the United States during this period because of the Treaty of Paris, which transferred the sovereignty from Spain to the United States. These acts passed by the United States Congress were considered as the Philippine constitutions for the fundamental political principles, and because they established the structure, procedures, powers, and duties of the Philippine government. And the next one is the Philippine Organic Act of 1902. It was also known as the Philippine Bill of 1902, the first organic law enacted by the U.S. Congress for the Philippines. It provided for the creation of the Philippine Assembly and a bicameral legislature composed of a Philippine Commission, which is the upper house, and the Philippine Assembly, which is the lower house, where the lawmaking power was vested. Like the other constitutions, it also enumerated the Bill of Rights for the Filipino and provided for the appointment of 2 non-voting Filipino resident commissioners of the Philippines that would represent the Philippines in the U.S. House of Representatives, while the Philippine Autonomy Act of 1916, also known as the Jones Law, amended the structure of the Philippine government that provided for the Philippine Bill of 1902. It removed the Philippine Commission, which is the upper house, and replaced it with a Senate whose members were elected by the Filipino voters. Because of this, the Philippines' first fully elected national legislature came into being. A notable statement of this act was the explicit expression of the United States to grant the Philippines its independence as soon as a stable Philippine government would be established. So the next one is the Tidings-McDuffie Act of 1934, which is on March 24, 1834, the United States passed the Tidings-McDuffie Act that allowed the Filipino nation to have a self-government. A 10-year transition period was granted by this act so that Filipinos could be prepared for self-government and full independence. Unlike the other two acts which could be considered constitution, the Tidings-McDuffie Act of 1934 could not be considered as a constitution, but still a very important document which provided authority and defined mechanisms for the establishment of the former constitution by a constitutional convention. And the eventful day arrived on July 4, 1946, when the United States recognized Philippine independence in the Treaty of Manila. The Philippine-American Friendship Day is celebrated every 4th of July to commemorate the Philippine independence from the United States of America.
Section 7. No votes cast in favor of political party, organization, or coalition shall be valid except for those registered under a party list system as provided in this Constitution. Section 8. Political parties or organizations or coalition registered under the party list system shall not be represented in the voters' registration boards. Section 9. Unless otherwise fixed by the Commission in special cases, the election period shall commence 90 days before the day of the election and shall end 30 days after. Section 10. Bona fide candidates for any public office shall be free from any form of harassment and discrimination. Section 11. Funds certified by the Commission as necessary to defray the expenses for holding regular and special elections, plebiscites, initiatives, referenda, and recalls shall be provided in the regular special appropriations, and once approved, shall be released automatically upon certification by the Chairman of Commission. Commission of Audit. Section 1. There shall be Commission of Audit composed of Chairman and 2 Commissioners, who shall be natural-born citizens of the Philippines, and at the time of their appointment, at least 35 years of age. Certified public accountants will not less than 10 years of auditing experience, or members of the Philippine Bar who have been engaged in the practice of law for at least 10 years, and then must not have been candidates for any elected position in the elections immediately preceding their appointment. Number 2 of Section 1. The Chairman of the Commissioner shall be appointed by the President with the consent of the Commission on appointments for a term 7 years without reappointment. Section 2. Number 1. The Commission of Audit shall have the power, authority, and duty to examine, audit, and settle all accounts pertaining to the revenue and receipts of and expenditures of or uses of funds and properties owned or held in trust by or pertaining to the government. Constitutional bodies, commissions, and offices that have been granted fiscal autonomy under the Constitution. B. Autonomous state colleges and universities. C. Other government-owned or controlled corporations and their subsidiaries. And D. Such non-governmental entities receiving subsidy or equity, directly or indirectly. Number 2 of Section 2. The Commission shall have exclusive authority, subject to the limitation in this article, to define the scope of this audit and examination, establish the techniques and methods required therefore, and promulgate accounting and auditing rules and regulations, including those for the prevention and disallowance of irregular, unnecessary, excessive, extravagant, or unconscionable expenditures or uses of government funds and properties. No law shall be passed exempting for any entitled entity of the government or its subsidiary in any guise whatever, or any investment of public funds. That's Section 3. Section 4. The Commission shall submit the President and Congress within the time fixed by law an annual report covering the financial condition and operation of the government. Article X. Local Government General Provisions. Section 1. The territorial and political subdivisions of Republic of the Philippines are the provinces, cities, municipalities, and barangays. There shall be autonomous regions in Muslim Mindanao and Cordilleras as hereinafter provided. Section 2. The territorial and political subdivisions shall enjoy local autonomy. Section 3. The Congress shall enact a local government code which shall provide a more responsive and accountable local government structure, instituted through a system of decentralization with effective mechanisms of recall, initiative, and referendum allocate among the different local government units. Section 4. The President of the Philippines shall exercise general supervision over local governments, provinces with respect to component cities and municipalities, and cities and municipalities with the component barangays shall ensure that the acts of their component units are within the scope. Section 5. Each local government unit shall have the power to create its own sources or revenues and levy taxes, fees, and charges subject to such guidelines and limitations as the Congress may provide. Section 6. Local government units shall have a just share as determined by law. Section 7. Local governments shall be entitled to an equitable share in the proceeds of utilizations and development of the national wealth within their respective areas. Section 8. The term of office of elective local officials, except barangays officials, which shall be determined by law, shall be 3 years, and no such official shall service for more than 3 consecutive terms. Voluntary renunciation of the office of any length of time shall not be considered as an interruption in the continuity of this service, his or her service. Section 11. The Congress may by law create special metropolitan political subdivisions subjects to plebiscite as set forth in Section 10. The component cities of municipalities shall retain their basic autonomy and shall be entitled to their own local executives and legislative assemblies. Section 12. Cities that are highly urbanized determined by law, and component cities whose charters prohibit their voters from voting to provincial elective officials shall not be independent of the province. Section 13. Local government units may group themselves, consolidate, or coordinate their efforts, service, and resource for purpose commonly beneficial to them. Section 14. The President shall provide for regional development councils or other similar bodies composed of local government officials, regional heads of departments, and other government offices. Autonomous region. Section 15. There shall be created autonomous regions in Muslim Mindanao and in the Cordilleras, consisting of provinces, cities, municipalities, and geographical areas, starting common and distinctive historical culture heritage. Section 16. The President shall exercise general supervision over autonomous regions to ensure that the laws are faithfully executed. Section 17. All powers, functions, and responsibilities not granted by the Constitution or by law to the autonomous regions shall be vested in the national government. Section 18. The Congress shall enact and organic act for autonomous region with the assistance participation of the Regional Consultative Commission composed of representatives appointed by the President from list of the nominees from multi-sectional consisting the Executive Department and Legislative Assembly, both of which shall be elective and representative of the constitutional politic units. Section 19. The first Congress elected under the Constitution shall, within 18 months from the time organization of both houses pass the organic acts of for the autonomous regions, mostly Mindanao and the Cordilleras. Section 20. Within its territorial jurisdiction and subject to the provisions of this Constitution and national laws, the Organic Act autonomous regions shall provide the legislative power over 9 organization and development. One is administrative organization, 2 creation of source and revenues, 3 ancestral domain and natural resources, 4 personal family and property relations, 5 regional, urban and rural planning development, 6 social and tourism development, 7 educational policies, 8 preservation and development of cultural heritage, and 9 such as matters as may be authorized by law for the promotion of the general welfare of the people of the region. Section 21. The preservation of peace and order within the regions shall be responsibility of the local police agencies which shall be organized, maintained, supervised, and utilized in accordance with the applicable laws. Article 6. Accountability of public officers. Section 1. Public office is a public trust. Public officers and employees must all have times be accountable to the people serve them with utmost responsibility, integrity, loyalty, and efficiency. Section 2 of Article 6. The President, Vice President, the members of the Supreme Court, the members of the Constitutional Commissions, and the Ombudsman may be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of culpable violation of the Constitution, treason, bribery, graft, and corruption. Section 3. The House of Representatives shall have the exclusive power to initiate all the cases of impeachment. Number 2 of Section 3. A verified complaint of impeachment may be filed by any member of the House of Representatives or by any citizen upon a resolution of endorsement by any member thereof, which shall be included in the order of business within the 10 session days. Number 3 of Section 3. A vote of at least 1/3 of all the members of the House shall be necessary, either to affirm a favorable resolution with the articles of impeachment of the committee or override its contrary resolution. Number 4 of Section 3. In case the verified complaint or resolution of impeachment is filed by at least 1/3 of the members of the family house, the same shall constitute the articles of impeachment. Number 5 of Section 3. In Article 6. No impeachment proceedings shall be initiated against the same official more than once with a period of 1 year. Number 6 of Section 3, Article 6. The Senate shall have the sole power to try and decide all cases of impeachment. Number 7. Judgment in cases of impeachment shall not extend further than removal from the office and disqualification to hold any office under the Republic of the Philippines. Number 8 of Section 3, Article 6. The Congress shall promulgate its rules and impeachment to effectively carry out the purpose of this section. Section 4 of Article 6. The present anti-graft court known as Sandigan Bayan shall continue to function and exercise its jurisdiction is now or hereafter may be provided by law. Section 5. There is hereby created the independent office of the Ombudsman, composed of the Ombudsman to be known as Tanod Bayan, one overall deputy and all at least one deputy for each Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Section 6. The officials of employees of the office of the Ombudsman other than the deputies shall be appointed by the Ombudsman according to the service of law. Section 7. The existing Tanod Bayan shall hereafter be known as the official of the Special Prosecutor. Section 8. The Ombudsman and its deputies shall be natural-born citizens of the Philippines.
1943 Constitution. The Preparatory Committee for Philippines Independence, or also known as PCPI, promulgated the 1943 Philippines Constitution during the Japanese occupation of the country. Most of the members of the PCPI were delegates to the convention that drafted the 1935 Constitution. The Constitution was ratified by the Popular Convention of the Calibapi in Manila on September 7, 1943. Following its ratification, the Second Republic was then formally proclaimed. The Second Philippine Republic was a single-party, authoritarian public. Jose P. Laurel was appointed as President by the National Assembly and was inaugurated into office in October 14, 1943, and Benigno Simeon Aquino Sr. was the Speaker of the National Assembly. The 1943 Constitution was in operation in Japanese controlled areas of the Philippines from October 14, 1943 to August 17, 1946. However, the United States and the Commonwealth government, which as an exile, did not recognize the said constitution. Laurel formally dissolved the Second Philippine Republic following the surrender of Japan in World War II. The preamble of the 1943 Constitution reads, "The Filipino people, imploring the aid of divine providence and desiring to lead a free national existence, do hereby proclaim their independence in the order to establish government that shall promote the general welfare, conserve and develop the patrimony of the national, and contribute the creation of the world order based of peace, liberty, and moral justice. Do ordain the Constitution."
1973 Constitution was promulgated by the 1973 Constitutional Convention after Marcos declared martial law. Promulgated means to spread. The purpose of the 1973 Constitutional Convention is the Freedom Constitution, intended as a transitional constitution to ensure democracy and the freedom of the people. The 1973 Constitution ruled the Fourth Philippine Republic from January 17, 1973 to February 22, 1986. This is where the proclamation of a new constitution wherein the presidential form of government was changed to a modified parliamentary form. A unicameral legislature was established during this period, whose members were elected for a 6 years of term of office. The Batasang Pambansa was made up of a maximum of 200 members elected from different provinces with their component cities, appointed representatives from various sectors, and those chosen by the president from the member of the cabinet. The president shall be elected from among the members of the National Assembly for a 6 years of term and eligible for re-election, meaning a majority vote of all its members. The President of the Philippines is elected by direct vote, and they may only serve for one term as eligible for re-election. The elected president will serve only as purely ceremonial head of state. Executive power was exercised by the Prime Minister, who was also elected from amongst the members of the National Assembly. The Prime Minister or the President was the head of the government and commander-in-chief of the armed forces. The 1973 Constitution amended on 4 occasions. Number 1. In the 1976 amendments, the interim National Assembly was replaced by the interim Batasang Pambansa. The President will also become the Prime Minister and will exercise legislative powers until the lifting of the martial law. The President can legislate on his own on an emergency basis. Number 2. In the 1980 amendments, the retirement age of the members of the judiciary was extended to 70 years. With the 15 years of government service, lifetime pension upon survival of 5 years. Number 3. In the 1981 amendments, the false parliamentary system was formally modified into a French-style semi-presidential system where executive power was restored to the president. Direct election of the president was restored. An executive committee composed of the prime minister and not more than 14 members was created to assist the president in the exercise of his power and functions, and in performance of his duties as he may describe, and the Prime Minister was a mere head of the cabinet. Before, the 1984 amendments abolished the executive committee and restored the position of vice president. The preamble of the 1973 Constitution reads, "We, the sovereign Filipino people, imploring the aid of divine providence, in order to establish a government that shall embody our ideals, promote the general welfare, conserve and develop the patrimony of our nation, and secure to ourselves and our posterity the blessings of democracy under a regime of justice, peace, liberty, and equality. To ordain and promulgate this Constitution, an introductory fact of one Constitution which contains the fundamental values, philosophy, aims, and objectives that indicate what to follow."
The 1986 Freedom Constitution. Right after the 1986 People Power Revolution that compelled President Marcos to step down from power, President Corazon Aquino issued Proclamation No. 3 to serve as a provisional constitution. The proclamation contained some provisions adopted from the 1973 Constitution. Powers such as government reorganization, appointment of commission to draft a new and more formal constitution, which upon ratification would supplant the Freedom Constitution. The first part of Proclamation Number 3 reads, whereas the new government was installed through a direct exercise of the power of the Filipino people assisted by units of the new armed forces of the Philippines, whereas the heroic action of the people was done in defiance of the provision of the 1973 Constitution as amended. Whereas the direct mandate of the people as manifested by their extraordinary action demands the complete reorganization of the government, restoration of democracy, protection of basic human rights, rebuilding of confidence in the entire governmental system, eradication of graft and corruption, restoration of peace and order, maintenance of the supremacy of civilian authority over the military, and the transition to a government under a new constitution in the shortest time possible. Whereas during the period of transition to a new constitution, it must be guaranteed that the government will respect basic human rights and fundamental freedoms. Wherefore, I, Corazon C. Aquino, President of the Philippines, by virtue of the power vested in me by the sovereign mandate of the people, do hereby promulgate the following provisional constitution. The 1987 Philippine Constitution. The 1987 Philippine Constitution was drafted by a constitutional assembly that was mandated in Proclamation Number 3. The commission composed 50 members appointed by President Corazon Aquino from various backgrounds. Former members of the House Representatives, former Justice of the Supreme Court, a Roman Catholic bishop, and a political activist against the Marcos regime. Cecilia Muñoz Palma, who was a former Associate Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, was elected by the Commission as its president. The final draft of the 1987 Constitution was on October 12, 1986, and was presented to President Aquino on October. The Constitution was ratified on February 8, 1987 through a nationwide plebiscite. The 1987 Constitution operates since 1987 during the administration of Cory Aquino from 1986 to 1992. Fidel Ramos, 1992 to 1998. President Joseph Estrada, 1998 to 2001. President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, 2001 to 2010. President Benignos Aquino III, from 2010 to 2016, and the current administration of President Rodrigo Roa Duterte from 2016 until the present time. The preamble of the 1987 Constitution reads, "We, the sovereign Filipino people, imploring the aid of Almighty God in order to build a just and humane society and establish a government that shall embody our ideals and aspirations, promote the common good, conserve and develop our patrimony, and serve and secure to ourselves and our posterity the blessings of independence and democracy under the rule of law, a regime of truth, justice, freedom, love, equality, and peace. Do ordain and promulgate this Constitution."
So the lesson 2 is the 1987 Constitution, Taxation, and Agrarian Reform Policies. Let's start with the 1987 Philippine Constitution. In Article 14, Section 3, Paragraph 1, that all education institutions shall include the study of the Constitution as well as the part of curricula, in which it is explained that all schools shall have a class of Philippine Constitution or the 1973 Constitution to let the students know and familiarize the law of the Philippines who has to be done. Next is the So the paragraph 2, it states that they shall inculcate patriotism and nationalism, foster love of humanity, respect of the human rights, appreciation of the role of the national heroes in the historical development of the country. Then it also teach the rights and duties of citizenship, strengthen ethical and spiritual values, develop moral character and personal discipline, and to encourage critical and creative thinking, broaden the scientific and technological knowledge, and promote vocational efficiency. So the second one is the taxation. But before that, let me explain to you or share to you that there are 3 branches of the government. First is the legislative, and the second is the judiciary, third is the executive. So the first one is the legislative, or it is from a Supreme Court, which is a maker of laws. Then second one is the judiciary. It is a branch of government whose task is its authoritative adjudication of the controversies over the application of laws in specific situation. And the last one is the executive, in which it is belong to the president. Now let's go to the taxation, which the legislative department. The Article 6, Section 28, Paragraph 1 states that the rule of taxation shall be uniform and equitable. The Congress shall evolve a progressive system of taxation. So let's proceed to the third one, which is the agrarian reform policies. So the agrarian and natural resources reform. So the article from the Article 13, Section 4, it states that the state shall by law undertake an agrarian reform program founded of the right of farmers and regular farm workers who are landless to own directly or collective the lands by tale, or in the case of other farm workers, to receive a just share of fruits thereof. To this end, the state shall encourage and undertake that just distribution of all agricultural lands subjects to such priority and reasonable retentions limit as the Congress may prescribe, taking into account ecological, developmental, or equity consideration, and subjects to the payment of compensation. In determining retention limits, the state shall respect the right of small farm workers. The state shall further provide incentives for voluntary land sharing. So that's all for our reporting today, and thank you.